flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, we have two commissioners that are absent. Mr. Jurdevig is dealing with a family emergency, and Mr. Simmons is online. First order of business is to approve the order of the agenda.
Make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner George. It's been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item D is the approval of the minutes of January 17th, 2022. They have been distributed. They are on pages 3 through 4 in the packet.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
One question before
Please.
I second it. In the packet, it's February 7th, so that must be a typo up there on the agenda.
My apologies. I read through all that and I didn't catch it.
So I'll second that if we have it on the 7th of February.
With that amendment, thank you.
Oh, good.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for February 2022, pages 3 through 4. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next order of business is to approve the building permit as distributed on pages 5 through 6. It's in the packet and have been distributed.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permits report as distributed. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next order.
Mayor Dartis,
Commissioner Simmons.
thank you. Am I a little behind, I'm assuming, by a couple seconds?
Maybe.
I'm sorry?
He's a little behind.
I think I am, so just for the sake of no confusion, all my votes will be ayes unless I say otherwise.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next order of business is a consent agenda. They are items A through H. They have been distributed. The pages start on page 7 and on page 47.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as distributed on pages starting at 7, ending in 47. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We move on now to the regular agenda. Item number 1 is a public hearing and a presentation from the Cass County Housing Authority Brighton Place Monterey Apartments Development Project. Malachi Peterson, City Planner, City of West Fargo. It is in pages 48 through 54 in your packet.
Good evening, Commissioners. In the fall of 2018, the City Commission voted to approve a letter of support and to sponsor the efforts of the Housing Authority of Cass County in partnership with Beyond Shelter to redevelop affordable residential units along Cheyenne Street. I don't know if you folks recall, but there used to be some older-looking barracks that were alongside that street. The City of West Fargo obtained a $310,000 grant through the Governor's Fund set aside of the Community Development Block Grant Program. Funds were used to acquire property for the developer, and funding for construction costs came from syndicated tax credits through the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program, the State of North Dakota's Housing Incentive Fund, and the Home Investment Partnership. In addition to these funds, the City Commission also provided additional support to the project via a payment in lieu of taxes or pilot incentive agreement. Today, construction on Monterey and Brighton apartments has been completed. There are now 85 units dedicated to low-income elderly households, and all units are currently leased. 18 of these units are handicap accessible, And per regulations associated with funding sources, the minimum affordability period for these units is 30 years. In order to close out the CDBG award, the Housing Authority and City are required to hold a public hearing to provide an opportunity for residents to ask questions or give comments on the project. Mitch Calkins with Lake Agassiz is here tonight, and he can also provide a brief presentation to you all on the project as well. But this is a public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Commissioners, before we start, like, any questions of Mr. Peterson? All right, thank you. First of all, I'm going to close the regular agenda, and I'm going to move into the public hearing. So is there anyone here that would like to speak on behalf of this project? And again, it's the Cass County Housing Authority Brighton Place and Monterey Apartments Development Project. Sir, step to the microphone, introduce yourself, please.
My name's Mitch Calkins from Lake Agassiz Regional Council.
Welcome.
We've served as grant administrator for the specific grant, the Community Development Block Grant. And namely, it's just the purpose of the public hearings. I ask any questions or offer any comments. Malachi provided a good overview of the project itself. Looking a lot better now than it was before. And I know that affordable housing is such a great need in the community, and any way that we can help, we will. So,
Thank you, sir. Questions? I've toured the facility, and I was there for the ribbon cutting, and it is a great amenity within our community improvement. We thank you for that. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone else that would like to speak to this item? Again, we're talking of the Cass County Housing Authority Brighton Place and Monterey Apartments on Cheyenne Street. Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Mr. Malachi, go ahead. Do you need an action? Is this an actionable item? Do we, are we just accepting the report?
Just accepting the report.
All right, sir. Thank you for your time. Item number 2 is a first reading and a public hearing, zoning ordinance amendment to section 4-449, allowing for a telecommunications tower within the public facilities district. Mr. Peterson, City Planner, City of West Fargo, pages 55 to 66.
Thank you, Mr. Commission President and Commissioners. The Planning and Zoning Department received an application probably about a month or so ago from a organization looking to put a telecommunications tower on a piece of property, school district property, within the district. This piece of property is currently Zone P for public facilities. It was only on further review that the Planning and Zoning Department realized that the P Public Facilities District doesn't actually allow for telecommunications towers to be placed within it. The wireless telecommunications ordinance was originally adopted by the City of West Fargo in 1997. Telecommunications towers were originally allowed on government, school, and utility sites, subject to review and approval as conditional uses when those uses were listed as residentially zoned property. In 2000, the P Public Facilities Zoning District was created, and at that time, many school, government, and utility sites were rezoned as P Public Facilities. Due to that oversight, though, telecommunications towers were never actually allowed within that. This proposed amendment would add the P Public Facilities to the list of acceptable zoning districts that telecommunications towers are allowed, but they would be subject to review and approval as conditional uses. I'm here in case anyone has any questions.
Questions, Commissioner?
Just,
Please, Commissioner Olson.
so I'm assuming we already have some communications on such structures in place already, right?
Correct.
And that's why we're just correcting the ordinance that actually legally allows them to be there now.
Yep, and to allow new facilities to be built within the city.
And to bring the old ones into compliance.
Compliance, yes.
All right.
So the specifics that we're talking about at Cheyenne High School is they're going to add a receiver onto an existing structure, correct?
Correct.
So there's no construction, there's no new tower going up. They're going to put it on one of the lights at the football field.
Correct. In this commission, you folks will be hearing the agenda item for that particular construction at your next meeting. But in order to do the applications concurrently with each other, since the zoning amendment requires two hearings or readings with the commission,
Sure.
the second reading will be held concurrently with that agenda item at the next meeting.
I wanted to state, though, that there's not a new structure going up on this particular item that's coming forward at the next meeting.
Correct. It's a floodlight where the telecommunications equipment is being placed on the light for the football lights, and then the equipment is being placed into a joint concession stand that they're building for the school.
Any additional questions for Mr. Peterson? This time, we're closing the regular agenda. We are moving on to a public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to this item? The zoning ordinance amendment to section 4-449, allowing for telecommunications towers within the P Public Facilities District. Hearing none, the public hearing is closed. We move back to the regular agenda, and this is a actionable item as it's the first reading.
Oh, Mayor.
Please.
Just one more
Commissioner
quick
George.
question. I guess, okay, so this, adding the public facilities has nothing to do with, you said it would have to be conditional use for any of the specifics that would go on that tower in like the separate meeting. So this is just to public facilities, that's it? Because I have had some concerns from the public as far as what's going on that tower.
Correct. So the Planning and Zoning Commission would receive a conditional use permit, so they would have to review that, and then that conditional use permit for this specific tower is coming to you folks then at the next city commission meeting.
Okay, thanks, just wanted to clarify, thanks.
Commissioners, any additional questions?
I move we approve the first reading.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. We have a motion to approve the first reading. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of zoning ordinance amendment to section 4-449, allowing for telecommunications towers within a public facilities district. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 3 on the regular agenda is a conditional use permit for off-premise signs in a public facilities districts at 535 13th Avenue West, South Elmwood Park, Mrs. Sankey, City Planner, City of West Fargo. It is in pages 67 through 84. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. This application was received in order to allow two 36-square-foot, non-lighted, off-premise signs for baseball field sponsorship at the north and south entrances of Elmwood Park. Under Section 4-433.3, off-site signs may be allowed as conditionally permitted uses in the Public Facilities District. The city may impose height and other requirements, as well as other requirements deemed necessary by the city to have such signs fit into the area in which they are proposed to be established. Conditional use permit agreement is required to be signed prior to the issuance of a building permit. With reference to the criteria for granting a conditional use permit, no concerns were noted. The signs are proposed to be non-illuminated. Notices were sent to property owners within 350 feet and applicable departments and agencies, and no comments were received. It's recommended that the city approve the proposed application on the basis that with conditions, it would be considered consistent with city plans and ordinances, with recommended conditions of approval as follows. Consideration be given to any public comments that may be received, and a signed conditional use permit agreement is received. I'm available to answer any questions, as is the park superintendent, Mrs. Erbstosser.
Thank you, Mrs. Sankey. Questions, commissioners? Commissioner George.
Just a quick comment. So I looked at this one closely. This park's important to me. 13th Avenue, when I saw this, great, no issue. It's not really looking at anybody. It doesn't matter so much. 19th Avenue, it is right across the street from houses. So it was important to me to see that there was nobody that spoke against it or anything, and it's not lit, and it looks very reasonable. So I feel okay with what's going in there. So.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Commissioners?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit for off-premise signs in a public facilities district at 535 13th Avenue West, South Elmwood Park, as presented by Mrs. Sankey, City Planner, City of West Fargo. Director of West Fargo Parks, Barbara Susser, is also in the crowd in case any questions you have of her. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 4. This item is a conditional use permit for a home occupation, firearm sales, as presented by Mr. Malachi Peterson, City Planner, City of West Fargo. It's in pages 85 through 100 of your packet.
Thank you, Commissioners. The applicant is seeking to operate a federally licensed firearms business out of his home. The business will be by appointment only. Federal agencies regulate the sale, repair, and storage of firearms. Since 2005, the City of West Fargo has required a conditional use permit for any home occupations which require customers to be coming to the home. Since that period of time, according to the Federal Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Bureau, there are 8 FFL dealers who have their businesses registered as a residential home in West Fargo, and since 2005, the city has approved 2 such conditional use permits for firearm sales. Section 4-448 of the city ordinances under supplementary district regulations lists the provisions for home occupations for which the home-based business would be subject to, and the applicant has indicated that he would not have any issue with meeting those restrictions. Home-based businesses are also required to provide off-street parking for customers in addition to the 2 required spaces for all family residential units. This property can accommodate up to 4 vehicle/on-site off-street parking spaces, including space in the garage for residential use. A conditional use permit, an agreement will be required to be signed by the applicant and may include conditions deemed appropriate by the City Commission. Property owners within 350 feet and applicable city agencies and departments were notified. Out of the 64 properties that were notified, comments and phone calls were received by 6 neighbors in opposition to the proposed conditional use permit. All of those in opposition said that they were concerned about the nature of the product being sold. Comments received in writing are attached to the packets that staff has provided. A comment was also received by Pierre Freeman, the West Fargo emergency manager, who expressed concern about the safe storage of firearms. His comment is also attached as well. The application may be considered consistent with the comprehensive plan if it is determined not to be detriment to the character and livability of the surrounding neighborhood. It is staff's recommendation that the city approve the proposed application with the following recommended conditions of approval as follows. 1, that the applicant meet all requirements set forth in the provisions for home occupations found in section 4-448 of the city ordinances. 2, that the applicant meet all federal and local requirements as they pertain to the sale, repair, and handling of firearms. 3, that adequate parking for both the home occupation and the residence be maintained. And 4, a signed conditional use agreement is received. At their February 8th, 2022 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. I am here in case you have any questions, and the applicant is also in the audience in case you have any questions for him as well.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Commissioner George.
I guess I'd have a couple of questions for the applicant.
Please state your name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Michael Knutson. I live at 1677 10th Street West, and I am requesting the applicant.
I guess a couple of my questions would be then, how are you storing the guns? How could you ensure safety of them in your home? And then do you vet your customers at all that are coming into the neighborhood?
Great question. So I actually have a gun safe that's actually inside a locked closet. So there's 2 locks in there. I also have security cameras, as well as a door sensor. I get an alert if someone opens it. As far as vetting customers, I'm not going to advertise. These are going to be people I know. However, there's still ATF, FBI background checks. All that has to go through. If they're approved, then, only then can I transfer a firearm. So there are extensive background checks, and that would be the vetting process.
Within those letters, there were some concerns which made me think about this a little harder. I'm very supportive of home-based businesses, but like I said, I just wanted to address those concerns. One of them had mentioned they heard gunfire in the neighborhood. I'm going to guess you don't
I did reach out to that concern.
Okay.
Yeah, that was not me, I can assure you that.
So you don't do demonstrations?
No,
Okay,
not at all.
I didn't figure you did, but I wanted to address that.
And, I mean, I have kids of
Okay.
my own, so safety is my number one concern.
Okay.
Additional questions of the gentleman? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Commissioners, your thoughts?
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Is that then with the recommendations?
Right,
of
with
staff?
the
Okay,
recommendation.
yep, second with the staff's
Thank you,
recommendation.
Commissioner George. It's been moved and seconded to approve the conditional use permit for a home occupation firearm sales as presented by Mr. Peterson of the city planner. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is a resolution to rename 57th Avenue West to 55th Avenue West. Mr. Aaron Nelson, Planning and Zoning. Did I miss one? I apologize. Item number 5. Item number 5 is the enterprise grant for 80s Cuisine LLC. Mr. Malachi Peterson, City Planner, City of West Fargo, pages 101 to 160 in the packet. My apologies.
Thank you, Commissioners. The City of West Fargo's Enterprise Grant is a targeted development program that provides the use of public funds to leverage private investment for interior and exterior improvements to commercial locations located within the city. The program applies to all commercial property located within the downtown mixed-use district and is intended to encourage property owners and business tenants to undergo projects which are transformational in use or to extend the lifespan of a building. Since the program's inception in 2019, there have been 3 recipients of the grant, including Thunder Coffee, Hollywood Beauty Suites, and Ferguson Books. Eighties Cuisine LLC has applied for a $75,000 enterprise grant for their expansion into West Fargo within the Firm Building, which is located downtown by the POW MIA Plaza on Cheyenne Street. This expansion would include the fit-up of 1,405 square feet of vacant space just south of Pioneer Place, as well as the purchase of food service equipment. These costs would total around $230,000 for the applicant. At their Monday, February 14th meeting, the Economic Development Advisory Committee recommended approval of the full $75,000 enterprise grant for Eighties Cuisine LLC. The applicant, Olaide, is here tonight, and she would like to do a brief presentation for you folks.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Olaide Adebayo. I'm the owner of Eighties Cuisine. I was inspired to start this just to bring a...
Please speak directly into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I was inspired to start this business because I wanted to bring a touch of Nigeria to Fargo here. And I have received great welcome from all the residents here. And they really like the food, and it just made me want to do more in terms of this. And so that's the exterior of the building where we're going to be at. And the floor plan, it's going to be primarily a carry-out restaurant, but there's going to be seating inside and outside for people who want to stay and eat in the restaurant. And we just have the aesthetics that we're looking to go with for the plan, for the building. And so, like I said, it's gonna be like a takeout restaurant with seating area for up to 6 people at a time. And there might be more seating outside in the warmer months. We're gonna have food wells with sneeze guards so customers can view the foods available. And one of the things is Nigerian food is new to most of the residents here, so we want them to be able to see what the food looks like, and we'll be there to explain and answer questions about the food. And there's gonna be beverage cooler with various cold drinks. We're gonna have an office with a break room available for staff members. And we're gonna have spice mixes that are homemade, hibiscus tea for sale. In the winter months, so we're gonna have hot chocolate and tea bar. And then we're also planning on selling some African herbs and spices. And that'll be available for people, especially in the winter. We like our soup, and so we're gonna sell some of that. And introduce people to making things like that. And our plan is also to have live music on Friday nights to experience more of Nigerian culture. We have our menu, some of what our food looks like, and some of the grocery items that we plan on selling as well for people who would rather make their foods at home sometimes. And this is the kitchen equipment that we plan on getting: shelving units, work tables, griddle, cooking ranges, ovens, a fryer, steamer, walk-in freezer and cooler, dishwasher with 3-compartment sinks, refrigerated merchandiser, hand washing stations. These are kind of the basic equipment that we will need to get up and running. And the benefits of having us in that location downtown is that we will bring in new customers as well as people that already are customer base that don't usually frequent the area. We would bring new businesses to the area. Because right now we cook out of a kitchen downtown, and so when customers pick up, they're coming to that location to meet us. But when we move down to this West Fargo area, we would bring all of our customers along with us. We have people stop by from neighboring cities as well. I know I have a standing customer that picks up once a month, and he lives in Minneapolis. So we have people who come in even from out of town to get food from us because there's not a lot of people around that make the food that we do. And we will do our part with the beautification of the storefront to make the area more appealing to visitors. Our new food business will promote the city's goal to foster unique businesses and diversify retail offerings, as there's no establishment in the area that serves what we're going to be serving. And our business is a destination already. People seek out what we sell, and this will make the West Fargo area a destination as well. Thank you.
Any questions of the lady?
I just have a comment.
Please, Commissioner George.
I think this is a fantastic use of the enterprise grant. This looks like a fantastic business, and I'm really excited to try your food.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming to West Fargo.
Thank you.
This is the second time I've heard it, so you did a great job the first time, you did a great job again tonight.
Thank you.
So to clarify here, there, in the floor plan, there are going to be public restrooms within
Yes.
this part of the facility?
Yes.
Okay. I thought I
I
noticed.
have, Mayor,
Yes, please, Commissioner Simmons.
thank you. I just have a couple questions because I can't really see everything in front of me, but what is the occupancy of this building? How many people can you have in there?
Let me have Zach answer.
It's about 1,500 square feet, is that correct, ma'am?
Yes.
But it's mostly,
Chief, off the top of your head? Chief Fuller, I'm calling on Commissioner Simmons.
Okay,
I'd have to go look it up, Mayor.
Okay.
See, but I'd assume probably no more than 20.
Okay.
With the seating issue.
No more than 20?
At a rate, yeah.
Okay. Did you hear that, Commissioner
Okay.
Simmons?
I did, thank you. So no more than 20. So my next question is, you mentioned live music. Where do you plan on having that at?
We're planning on doing that at the plaza that's located pretty close to where the building is at. So there's a.
Have you had conversations with them?
Yes.
Okay, so they're aware of that. Okay. That was my concern, that you were gonna put, 50 or 100 people out on the sidewalk or something.
No. No.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Any additional questions of the lady?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Commissioner George moves to approve the enterprise grant for 80s Cuisine LLC located in the firm for the total of $75,000. Is there a second?
second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve the enterprise grant for 80s Cuisine. Is there any further discussion? Let's see if he's got it. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The one that I was in such a rush to get to is now the resolution to rename 57th Avenue West to 55th Avenue West. Mr. Nelson, this sounds like a really exciting item this evening.
Well, it probably sounds more exciting than it actually is. But, thank you and good evening. So item 6, as you mentioned, is a request for approval of a street name change. Specifically, the request is to approve a resolution to rename 57th Avenue West as 55th Avenue West. Included in your meeting packet is a map that provides a little bit of context to kind of what's going on here. At this location on the east side of 11th Street, there's an existing block of houses that are in the 5,500 range. And you can see this kind of redded out area here is where the existing 57th Avenue is located. And so in summary, the one would expect to find the 5,500 block of addresses north of 57th Avenue on the south side of town. And so this is kind of reversed. And so the overall intent here is just to improve wayfinding within this area and to do so by renaming 57th Avenue as 55th Avenue, which would be consistent with the existing house numbers located on the east side of 11th Street. Staff has discussed this proposal with the original developer. The Wilds 21st edition is not yet constructed, so there's no street in yet or anything like that, and the developer still owns all of the houses that would be addressed off of this street. Additionally, we did send notification letters to the other abutting property owners, of which I think there was only one other abutting property owner, and we have received no comments. This proposal comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the city's review committee, and the proposed resolution is included in your packet, and again, the request is to approve that resolution. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Questions, commissioners? This has all been vetted through the police department and fire department, and everybody's all on the same page as this, Mr. Nelson?
Correct. We've been in contact with staff from both
Yep.
those departments,
Okay,
yes.
Good. And this is in the Wilds 21st edition,
Correct.
just for the public information in case you're not following the map. Commissioners?
Make motion to approve?
Commissioner Olson moves. Is there a second, please?
Second?
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the resolution to rename 57th Avenue West to 55th Avenue West as presented by Mr. Nelson of the Planning and Zoning Director. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 7 is the first reading of Ordinance 1207, parking on a snow emergency route, pages 165 through 166 in your packet. Mr. Shockley.
I didn't see my name assigned to it, but I'll pinch in on it.
I didn't either, but you were looking. You made eye contact, so you get it.
This is the last meeting we discussed having an ordinance amendment to prohibit parking on portions of the downtown Cheyenne Street after proper notice has been given, so that you could have better snow removal activities based upon direction from the commission. I drafted an ordinance, worked with the Public Works Department and got comments from other staff. And before you have the draft ordinance, in essence, we would provide the city would provide a 48-hour notice. Cars would need to be removed on whichever side of Cheyenne Street would be necessary. They would plow it, clean it, and then parking could resume as normal. Pretty straightforward ordinance amendment, but I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Have there been any concerns voiced by the fire chief or the police department? Lieutenant Durr is here this evening. That's all good. No concerns regarding enforcement. I also see we have some downtown business people here, and I'm going to invite them if they would like to speak to this issue. Mrs. Dutton, nice to see you this evening. Welcome.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. I had a couple other folks join in terms of their opinions or what they've seen in Cheyenne. So some of the things that I've read so far in this ordinance that does make me a bit concerned is that it states Cheyenne Street and then a block east and west of Cheyenne Street. So my question is, will this ordinance then prevent anyone from parking on both Morrison, Cheyenne, and Succoot for this time period so that snow can be removed.
Good question. Mr. Shockley?
It will depend upon the declaration of the Public Works Director. So the Public Works Director would announce where you can park, and so they can get the snow removal cleaned out overnight. I would defer.
Mr. Anvik is here,
Anvik.
Director of Public Works, City of
would
West
see
Fargo.
that being implemented.
Okay, so it'd be good to know what those designated spots are, because as many of you know, Cheyenne Street's population is getting a lot more dense, and we have several different apartment complexes which are full, and one public parking spot in that area, in that little zone, and then one on the very far south side, which is just temporary, south of the, what is it? The building that the VFW is in. So on a regular basis, that parking lot is full, and Cheyenne Street is also full. So much so that we were notified last week that we're losing business because our customers come to the coffee shop to try to have a meeting, and there's nowhere to park. So I am concerned that if you put out an ordinance saying like everybody has to move their cars, they won't have anywhere to go.
A legitimate concern. Mr. Anvik, Director of Public Works, is joining us.
Yes, I can speak to that. Kind of the intent with this is just to try and clean the main parts of Cheyenne and just the avenues between Cheyenne Street and, say, Morrison and Succoot, just so we can actually get those areas cleared out so people can actually park there. If we can get them back curb to curb so there is parking there. We generally, when we do the Cheyenne Street clearing, we're there about 3, 4 in the morning and try to be done by 8, so we're not affecting any businesses.
Thank you, sir.
Well, and my concern isn't necessarily the businesses as much as the residents, and then the residents impact the business. So all of the residents take up the existing parking today. If you tell them to go somewhere else, they're all gonna park in Kurt's parking lot. I'm sure he's gonna be super excited about that. And as a resident, if they live in that apartment complex and they have to move their car the night before, where will they go? They will just take up every business spot that's there, and most of them probably won't get up at 7 or 8 and immediately move their car into what could be a spot where they were parking originally. So I'm just trying to encourage you to look at where do you want them to go?
Great. Very good. Commissioner George.
Yeah, so I have a question. So honestly, when we started talking about this, I was thinking it was the businesses that actually wanted this so that we could get the spots cleared. So this is actually really interesting to hear this, because this is about 180-degree different than I was thinking you guys would have of this. So this is really very interesting conversation.
I've been driving since this discussion last time. I was by your store this morning, and there's one car that's been there for at least 2 storms, parked, a black car, parked right in front of your business. And, you know, that's not what we want either, you know, whether they're out of town. I'm going to invite another business person. Kurt, would you like to, or this gentleman? Mr. Dutton first, excuse me.
Hi. Yeah, no problem. Dexter Dutton. I live at 444 Cheyenne Street as well, so I live in the same area that, you know, our coffee shop is, as well as our roastery, which would also be affected by this ordinance. In addition to what Nicole has already brought up, I think the most aggressive part of this ordinance would be the ticketing and towing. Having lived in downtown Fargo previously, if we didn't move our cars, it was just a ticketable offense. I feel like the towing is a little bit above and beyond what, I understand the premise behind it, move the car, clear the spot, but that's a big reason for people to not live down there and come down there as well.
Can I just make a comment?
Please, Commissioner Olson.
This isn't going to be an every week occurrence. This will only be when there is a declaration of a snowstorm, like we just had the last 2 days, to come in, clear it out, get it done, and make it safe for the people who are trying to get to your businesses, so they can see at the curbs and the intersections and things like that, so it can be done. It's not going to be done on a weekly basis, So, I mean, I just want you to understand that part of it too, that it's not gonna be every night at 2 AM, everybody's out of there.
Yeah.
It's maybe happens once a year. So, I mean, plus we don't have to provide on-street parking for residents, throughout the entire city. That's one thing.
Mayor,
Commissioner Simmons.
I'm sorry, when Commissioner Olson's done.
Commissioner, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Go ahead, Commissioner Simmons.
Okay, thank you. You know, I somewhat agree with Commissioner George on this. You folks, we've got to get this cleaned up. And look, you know, some of you have been complaining for a long time. My thought process is like Commissioner Olson said as well. It's only going to be done during a declaration, like you guys just had these last couple of days. But my question would be, is why do we have to do a block to the east and to the west? Why can't that wait so those people can at least park on those streets if they absolutely have to?
Good question. Mr. Andrick is stepping to the microphone, Commissioner.
Commissioner Simmons, to that, the whole thought process of that is we can get it done at one time. Because a lot of times if we're going to, you know, when you're going down Cheyenne Street, we'll turn and go down one of the alleys, or one of the avenues, and then we can kind of just make a big swing through that, you know, kind of pull everything to the center, and then load it up in the trucks and move it out. And if we can get through there at, you know, if we start at 3 and get out of there by 7 o'clock and it's out of there, it's just open, it's a lot more open for people to park there later, and then we can just get it done instead of having to come back later. If that's an amendment you guys want to make to it, that's fine too. We can make it work.
I agree with what you're saying, but I guess I don't necessarily agree with the block east and west, because if they could be done when you're doing the 2 blocks east or the 2 blocks west. This way, at least these folks got within a block they can walk. If they have to overnight, park their car and get it done with. And then maybe the next day we tell them not to, anger those neighbors. Okay, the following day they got to move it back or move them wherever. But I do truly believe that we've got to keep Cheyenne Street as clean as we can. We've got a lot of money invested down there, a lot of businesses, that want their people to come to them. So I understand what businesses are saying as well.
Yeah, one thing we can do with that too is just get it to Cheyenne Street, and then I think our maintenance zone is Thursdays on those days, and then just enforce it on those Thursdays as well on the side streets.
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Andrick. Mr. Kurt Leopard, Silver Dollar Bar. Good evening and welcome.
Yeah, my concern was that, and I think it addressed, I think getting Cheyenne Street done is like phase 1, the other streets. But yeah, it would be hard to find parking for those people in order to forget that. And, walkability is the thing downtown, and what I'd kind of like to know is what is a sensible time for the walkable areas to be cleaned. Is it a day out? I mean, this is huge snow. We've had huge snow. This is a brand new thing. We've had talks already this year about it. But I'm thinking day after the storm in my mind, at least those sidewalks should be done and cleared. Since walkability downtown is the key, and that's what we've been sold on, and that is an important aspect of being able to move around and get to business if you have to park a block or 2 away, which is how it was intended to be when this project was designed. For example, the south side of our building now is the city sidewalk. When we talked, and the city's been taking care of that, but it's impassable right now for that public parking on the south side. So whoever parks there this evening will have to walk into the street to get to, either.
It's immediately to the south of your building?
Yeah, yeah. And they've been coming after the first snowfall. They went and did the main things, and we talked. I didn't want, my snow removers, doing any damage to that sidewalk, and it's still public parking, just like it is on Cheyenne Street. I think I'm the only one like that.
Yes.
I guess by West Funeral Home too, maybe, but we kind of came to the agreement that should be cleared out along with the same as the Cheyenne
But
corridor.
on the south side of your building, you have front-end parking rather than,
Yeah, they did the diagonal curb up
Yeah, thank
parking
you.
and with the widened sidewalk and everything, so.
okay. Mr. Andrick, would you like to respond to that? Were you aware, or your department aware, that the city has been handling that sidewalk for Mr. Leopard and his business?
Yeah, I think on the sidewalk we have been, I mean, like on this storm, we just can't even, we can hardly keep up with the stuff we're doing right now, so that's gonna be a little bit, problematic, but, we've been trying to get as soon as, the main drags, I guess, is the biggest thing with the
Sure, I understand.
sidewalks we're trying to do.
It's a new problem,
Yeah.
and it's important though, too, that the walkability and the sidewalks having access, and
Duly noted.
somehow, some way, that should, I don't know we used to have Todd at Payroll Express, who was the.
He used to do all this
block
whole,
captain
yeah,
that
I know he did.
all that, so this is super new to everyone, so.
So,
that's,
all right, duly noted. Thank you, Mr. Leopard. Okay, before we move forward with this ordinance, would we like to consider sitting down with these business owners again?
I think that's a good idea.
Mr. Olson, you were the one that brought this forward, and I commend you for that. I think it's an excellent idea, but maybe with regard to the avenues.
Right.
How would we like to proceed on that? Mr. Shockley, do you have a recommendation?
You could just table it until you've had a meeting with the business owners.
I thought the one gentleman made a good point too, is towing going too far with this ordinance? I mean, it's just a valid question, I think.
Mr. Anvick?
Well,
Mr. Simmons.
Commissioner Simmons?
thank you, yeah. I think we have to have towing in there. I mean, because otherwise the cars, they'll take the ticket and sit there. The point is to get the cars out of there. My next suggestion would be let's just take out the block west and block east and move forward. We're gonna have to do something. So I totally get if everybody wants to sit down and rehash this out with the business owners, but I think at the end of the day, we're still gonna come up with cleaning Cheyenne Street. We have to get it clean.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Commissioner Olson?
We could always make the change in between the first and the second reading, right? So we could leave it just as it is for the first reading, have the meeting with the business association and everybody else, and come back with a updated version of this new ordinance for the second reading.
You can do that too.
Mr. Leopard, go ahead.
How will the notifications get sent out? That's gonna be a key. I mean, I guess I don't get half the city notifications, so if I was a resident.
I can't hear it, Mayor.
Mr. Leopard is asking the question, how does the notifications come out to those residents in that area of town? Mr. Shockley, did you want to respond to that, or?
Yeah, so in the ordinance, we had contemplated that it would include broadcasts on the news stations that we've normally been doing, posts on the city website, social media. We'd notify the Downtown Business Association, and if feasible, include it in the newspaper, but I know the newspaper probably isn't the best notification anymore. No offense against any newspapers listening.
Mr. Leopard, if you have additional comments, would you come to the microphone? Commissioner Simmons can't hear you if you're not. Commissioner Olson, did you have additional item?
I would assume it'd be just similar to what you see on the local TV news stations, that their 6 and 10 o'clock notices, that they're warning everybody in Fargo, get your cars off. If they're still sitting there, they're gonna be towed. And it doesn't happen that often. So it's maybe once or twice a year, if that.
Right. I mean, maybe even if us business people could go up and down and put something under windshields or anything, just to notify, if we get something, just to try to let people know.
Yeah.
And if they're not getting towed and we're getting the snow removed, I think that's the key to this whole thing.
Yeah, I think we can pass an ordinance and then we can, and maybe softly implement this so we can figure out how, as we go along, how this goes. So either we move this up and down, strike the words avenues, or we table it and have additional conversation with the business community. Lieutenant Dura. Apparently you're acting chief right now.
Field
though.
promotion.
I'm here for Chief Ordinance today. Just to let you know, if a vehicle gets ticketed and then we're gonna tow it, we always dismiss the ticket when we tow it. So the ticket would be dismissed if you had gotten a parking ticket.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that clarification.
I guess for
Commissioner George.
myself, our downtown businesses are so important. I guess I'd want to know if they felt comfortable with moving this forward for tonight, or if they would prefer to sit down and have a meeting.
I would ask that, may I suggest something? Mr. Shockley, you've heard all of the conversation here, where this is the first reading. We can obviously alter that, and we would encourage the yards, the Downtown Business Association, to offer any insight and input, and if you direct all of those comments to Mrs. Fisk, please, I'd appreciate that very much. Mr. Anvik or Lieutenant Dura, anyone else that has some insight onto this, please direct everything to Mrs. Fisk, and we'll have this back for a second reading with the insight and the input of the yards and the Downtown Business Association.
Looks like they're nodding
Fair?
their heads. So.
Okay, so let's move forward and have an actionable item to move this forward to continue, please.
I'll make a motion to.
Mayor?
first reading.
Yes, Commissioner Simmons.
Prior to moving it forward, are you going to take out the east and the west though, just to get that out of there?
We can do that in between, right?
We can do that between the first and second reading, Commissioner Simmons.
Okay, I realize we can. I just wanted to know if we just do that now and be done with it. But,
That's our intent, is to have Mr. Shockley adjust the language in it after receiving input from the Downtown Business Association as well.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the first reading with some instructions as to modifications. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 8 is an improvement district, 2265 9th Street Northeast, Main Avenue to 12th Avenue Northeast. Mr. Dustin Scott, City Engineer, aired pages 167 through 174 in your packet.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis. Good evening, Commissioners. Well, we would like to get started on the 9th Street Northeast Reconstruction Project. That is going to be the urbanization of 9th Street from Main Avenue up to 12th Avenue Northeast. So before you today is a request to publish our request for proposals so that we can get a consulting engineering firm on board to start the preliminary engineering and environmental process with the DOT. Typically, this can take anywhere from 18 to 36 months, so we certainly want to get a head start on things now. There will be a lot of right-of-way acquisition and so on and so forth. So again, simply just asking to approve the RFP, and we will get it published tomorrow. That I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Questions, Commissioners?
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to, for Improvement District 2265, 9th Street Northeast, Main Avenue to 12th Avenue Northeast, to authorize an RFP, which will be published for bids. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Scott. Item number 9 is a Public Works Equipment Trainer. This presentation is by Mr. Matt Anvik, Public Works Director. It's on pages 175 and 176 in your packet. Good evening, Mr. Anvik.
Good evening, President Dardis and Commissioners. I kind of gave you a heads up here, I think it was the last meeting, that there's some new federal regulations that came into effect in February on requiring that all CDL drivers have to go through a theory course and then behind the wheel training. And the cost of that is upwards about $6,000 per person. And then I guess kind of doing the math on what we'd be paying somebody to go through all this class, it'd be about $7,200 per person. So trying to figure out what we wanted to do with that, we met with HR and our new safety coordinator, and we just trying to kind of figure out what's the best and kind of most cost-effective way to do this. And we kind of the idea we came up with is hiring a person to be kind of an equipment trainer, a CDL trainer that would be under Public Works. We've been averaging about 12 people per year over the last few years that have been getting CDLs, which that comes out to, about $86,000. So we're looking at having one of these, if we can get this position approved tonight, we'll have somebody hired into that. They'll have to go through training to make sure that we're covered with all the state and federal regulations with this and make sure that we're doing kind of everything by the book. And then going forward, that person would probably start looking and doing some more equipment training and different things, training different pieces of equipment with public works and sanitation people as well. And then when we are not training anybody in with this, they would just kind of be filling in different places. If we need a truck driver or actually the transfer station, we need another person down there because, I mean, we're still averaging like 800 visits per month with that. So this person will actually be able to help out with that as well as keeping our costs down for training as well. This position would actually be reporting to our operations manager at Public Works. And then we're going to be funded out of, I guess, the Public Works department itself. But then we could probably allocate out to sanitation, water, sewer funds, different things like that for the different employees that we're training. We currently have 2 right now that need to get CDLs. We hired 2, we're going to be hiring 2 more to fill positions. So within the next 6 months, we might have 4 or 6. And that's, just in the first half of the year that we'll have to do. So with that, I guess, it's time for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Anvick. Questions for Mr. Anvick?
Just a couple.
Please, Commissioner Olson.
Are we having that much turnover, or we need to hire new people off the street, so to say, so to speak, that don't have CDLs? I mean, is this something that, when you hire somebody, should that be looked at, that we're hiring somebody with the CDL versus having to take on this task of training them one way or another? Is that could be a requirement?
That would be, but we wouldn't really be able to hire anybody because, I mean, most people, if they have over-the-road truck drivers, are probably making $40 or more an hour, and we're not going to be paying that. Or requiring somebody with a CDL. It's just going to be hard. Most of the people that we hire don't have them, and we have to train them in, especially like the sanitation jobs and different things like that. So I guess, would either be paying for the training or would have to maybe wage adjust or do something that way.
So is there any way, Matt, would you invest that into these employees? There's nothing to hold them once they have their CDL then.
That is something we did look at with, and we were discussing with HR once these regulations were going through, and to be able to, let's say, prorate, if they stay a certain amount of time, then their training would be covered, but anything under, let's say, a year, if they stay 6 months, they have to pay 50% back. Or something like that, just so we don't turn into being a training school for people.
Thank you. Mr. Shockley, we have that ability to do that legally, that
Yeah.
as a contingent of their employment and or the training?
Yeah, there are some limitations. I mean, the employee has to agree to it in writing. And also, like, if somebody received all the training and quit 2 weeks later, there's probably insufficient funds to take out of their check. So you're not always going to be able to collect 100% of it. So it's a tool. It's not going to solve every problem, but it is a tool to help recover some of those costs.
All right, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anvick. Any additional questions for Mr. Anvick?
I do, Mayor.
Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. So Matt, where did you come up with this cost estimate of around $6,000 for the theory course?
That's what it is.
Our safety coordinator, actually, he reached out to at least one of the schools in town, and that's what they charge currently, yes.
Okay, and so then,
That is an accurate
Just
figure, Commissioner Simmons.
yeah,
My former company, I know that for a fact that it's a $6,000 training.
okay, so I guess where I'm going with this is this individual that you want to hire, obviously, and maybe I don't have it all, but I don't see what the pay scale is there at all. And then, obviously, as far as his training, it has to be a lot more schooling and everything else for this individual?
Not much, actually. We looked into it. It's a few classes to take, and just as long as this individual holds equivalent or higher driver's license of what they would be training. Like somebody with a Class A with no restrictions would be able to train anybody underneath them as well. And then whatever, like air brake or tanker endorsements, they would need those as well.
So then why do we need to hire a separate person? Why can't we just have somebody out there now do this? So we have a foreman or somebody who's licensed. Why would we go and create this whole new position?
To be honest, I don't know enough people to do that. I don't have another person to spare to train this many people in, to spend 40 hours, and if we're averaging, you know, even 10 people, that's 400 hours a year that we'd have to have somebody training.
Commissioner
To
Olson.
me, it's a lot of money. I don't think it's worth it, so, but.
You've checked this out, that this, if we would go through with this and establish a position like this to provide our own in-house training, it would meet all of the federal requirements, so we wouldn't have to, you know, later on find out, oh, we, you know, it doesn't work. You can't get their CDL because of us training them.
Yeah, we had, I guess Nathan's checked into it, and we would, all we do have to is just apply to it with the state, that we can do that in-house. We can actually train any other government agent, you know, person that's, you know, working for a different city even, as long as it's a government entity. I believe Fargo's going down the same path as well, and I think we can kind of co-op with some of the theory programs through with them as well. But I think they're going down the kind of the same route as us. I mean, granted, they take, you know, they have more people per year to train than we do, but that is something moving forward that would cover that. Plus, we'd get, you know, more work out of the person, because if we're sending them to a school to go do that, that's 40 hours we're paying them to go train somewhere. Where if we had our own trainer, say it was in the sanitation department, our trainer could be riding around with them at the same time, so we're getting 40 hours of work out of that person instead of paying them just to go to school.
Mayor?
Commissioner George has her hand up.
Yeah. I just have a comment. So this hits home for me because it's so similar from my full-time job, what I do for a living. You know, I'm constantly going through training and new equipment, and, you know, this is exactly what I do. You have all these requirements that are mandated. Now, the smaller companies I worked for, it makes more sense to go elsewhere for training, but in the larger departments, they all have in-house training because it makes more financial sense because it's so expensive to train people. So for me, with a larger department, to have an in-house training makes a ton of financial sense. It makes sense to me in every way. So that's how I see it from my own personal experience too.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Commissioner Simmons, do you have additional comments?
I do. I guess, unfortunately, I don't agree with Commissioner George at all. I think, you know, with something like this, we could co-op with Fargo. We have all kinds of cooperation with them. Why would we want a separate individual for this when we don't really hire that many people every year? We could just, you know, pay them a certain percentage. And I think that would save us a lot more money than going out and getting our own.
This is a new requirement that just the federal government has instilled on everyone. So it's something new to be dealing with for sure.
And it's one thing that we also looked at that's possible as well as, we haven't looked into it too much, but the smaller towns around the neighboring cities, like I say, you know, Horace, Maple, and other small towns that aren't going to be able to do, they'd have to send their employees to get trained at one of these. We may be able to work out something where it's a little bit smaller cost and use our trainer, be able to recoup our costs that way, help them out and actually cover a little bit. That's something down the road, but we also looked into that. As long as we are training other government agencies to do this for cities, we're not listed as a training facility then, and we can do that.
Okay. Commissioners, additional questions of Mr. Anvik?
Maybe not for Mr. Anvik, but for
Please.
for Tina. Do we have room in our budget for such a position? You know, when would, if we would approve this, when would they start, and do we have budget and all that good stuff?
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Olson. As far as room in the budget, there isn't room in the budget to pay for the training if we have to pay for it outside for an outside trainer to train our employee, plus take them over the road training. So in my mind, there isn't money for either one, but we're mandated to do it. I don't think our budget, we've been short-staffed, but it's early in the year. I just think that it's a decision of, do you want to go over paying for training, or do you want to hire this person and hopefully keep people in-house and recoup?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point Tina made. It has to be paid for one way or the other. It's a new requirement, so which way do we want to pay for it?
Mayor,
Commissioner Simmons.
how much is the position? What's the range?
I guess what we had down from HR, the starting salary with benefits, everything like that would be, total cost of the city would be 78,000. That's wage and benefits and everything for the full year. Which I guess if it was approved, we'd probably, it'd be probably a month or 3 weeks, probably to a month would be the soonest we'd be able to hire somebody. So it would be 3/4 of the year gone, or a quarter of the year gone.
And so, Matt, I see here it took effect February 4th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a grace period?
It's over.
Not much of one if there is. I don't believe there is actually. I know. there was a
So
lot
my
of people-
question is this, it's February 22nd. How come we just find out about it now? I'm sure they put this out last year when we were talking budget. You think they would have been discussing this, the federal government?
They actually started talking about this regulation back in 2012, and then kept pushing it off every year. They were talking about it last year, last fall, and everybody thought they were going to push it off again because of COVID and everything else that was going on. And everybody was assuming they didn't, and that's why I guess we didn't bring it up at the time. And then they decided at the beginning of the year that they were going to stick with the February 4th deadline.
The trades unions, along with the Chamber of Commerce, has been fighting this since 2012. And they stalled it, but now it's become law. So, like I said, I was engaged in this for probably 6 years myself, trying to get it stopped because I had over 20 CDL drivers working for us. And it's a heck of an expense for a small business or a smaller community. It's a fact of life. It's here. We have to deal with it.
I mean, for me, if Mr. Anvik believes that this is the most cost-effective way to handle this issue that we have to deal with, then I would support his recommendation.
Okay, is that in form of a motion?
I will make a motion to approve.
Commissioner George moves to approve the Public Works Equipment Trainer position as presented by Mr. Matt Anvik, Public Works Director. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the Public Works Equipment Trainer by Mr. Anvik. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
The motion passes on a 3-to-1 vote.
Thank you.
Item number 10, thank you, Mr. Anvik. Item number 10, City Administrator's Report. Mrs. Fisk?
Thank you, President Dardis. The item that I did have listed there has been removed. And at this time, between my voice and everything, I don't have anything else. Thank you. And I have no correspondence.
Commissioners, do you have any non-agenda items that you'd like to bring forward? No? Commissioner Simmons, anything?
No.
Is there any of our department heads that have anything that they'd like to bring forward at this time? Hearing none. Commissioner Olson?
Move to approve, to adjourn.
Commissioner George?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. We stand adjourned.